Call the meeting to, please rise for the flag salute. Marv, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Forrester, are there any additions to the agenda?
No additions tonight, Mayor.
We'll move on to the consent agenda. If everybody's had a chance to read the consent agenda, I'm open to a motion to approve it.
I will move to approve it as written.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Okay, so we're down to the first visitors' appearances and requests. If you're not already on the schedule and you'd like to speak to us, to the council tonight, please come up to the podium and you can speak to us. There will be another point at the end of the meeting that if someone would like to present or speak to us, they can. Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak to us? If you would, you can raise your hand in the Zoom features. All right. Well, I will move on. Council presentations. Item number 2, New Sun Energy, Josie Norris. And Josie, I know you have a pretty good presentation for us. I am going to ask, so could you keep it to about 10 minutes? Because we have a ton of stuff on our agenda.
Yeah, no problem. Lisa had mentioned that before, so
Okay.
I cut some slides out and I'll do my best. I brought my phone, so if I go over, let me know, but.
Thank you.
Good evening, counselors. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Josie Norris. I'm the Community Investments Director at New Sun Energy. My guess is you probably know who New Sun is already, but we are a solar company based in Oregon, and we build projects solely in the state of Oregon. But I'm actually not here to talk about solar today. I'm here to talk about the investments that New Sun is making here in Crook County and Prineville and across the state of Oregon. The community benefits presentation, I actually give it twice a year to our team, and it is an hour and a half long typically. So this is just a little slice of what we are doing in the state. And I'd love the opportunity, another time to do a deeper dive with you and brainstorm some ideas about, our community benefits program and what we could do here. Clicker, sorry, one second. Let's see. There we go. So I joined the New Sun team about 3 years ago, and I have the great privilege of managing our community benefits program. Our community benefits program, the way we talk about it is that it's a manifestation of our goal to make both near-term and long-term investments in the communities and places where we do business. Here's a handful of photos from community members here in Prineville. You probably recognize some of these folks. And how the program works. So for the lifetime of every project, there's a small percentage of revenue that gets deposited into a community benefits fund. And for every year, that fund gets renewed, and I have the honor of distributing that money into the places where we have projects in Oregon. We use something called trust-based philanthropy, which means that trying to really recognize the capacity of the organizations and people in rural communities where we work. It's really not fair to ask them to fill out, comprehensive applications and reporting requirements. So we really use existing relationships and values-aligned partners to make these investments, and we can turn them around quickly and really do that through, what we're hearing from the community, where the greatest needs are, and we're able to respond quickly when those come up. We make multi-year investments for most of our partners to help secure that long-term funding. Most of our investments are between $500 and $25,000. It's not a hard and fast rule. We have made larger and smaller donations as well. And we are always looking for opportunities to make a relatively small investment that has an outsized impact. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Since New Sun was founded in 2016, we've invested almost $1.5 million across the state of Oregon, including about $250,000 here in Crook County. Here's a quick map. I'm going to go fast through some of these. The darker shaded counties are where the majority of our investments have gone, and then the lighter shades here on this map is sort of where we are working on potential new projects and have started to make smaller investments. The areas that we're funding here are kind of distributed here. The biggest focus areas are in access to healthcare and across 4-H and county fairs. Followed by that are investments in education, primarily through scholarships, as well as outdoor recreation and environmental initiatives. Here in Crook County, by far our biggest investment is through 4-H and county fairs. Education is after that, followed by recreation and public health. And I'll talk briefly about some of the specific projects that we're supporting. This is our most recent donation, which is called the Little Wonders Program through the High Desert Museum. High Desert Museum partners with a local organization called Neighbor Impact, which they identify low-income families in Prineville and Crook County and provide free 2-year museum memberships to the families who want to visit the museum. And so those families with kids between 3 and 5 also get gas cards to be able to make that trip down to the museum. I believe they're planning on serving 70 families in the Prineville area this year through that program. The next one is the Environmental Center, who is, this was a 3-year grant supporting environmental education and Garden for Every School program, providing garden boxes for all the elementary schools and then programming to teach students how to grow their own food and keep a garden going throughout the season. Central Oregon Trail Alliance is an organization that we've supported for a couple of years to help build out some of the trail signage around the city of Prineville to help increase awareness and access to trails. We made a donation to help improve trail stewardship and maintenance and improvements over at Barnes Butte. Another example of what we try to do here locally and across the state is to help, bring more dollars in beyond what New Sun can do ourselves. So in this case, CODA needed additional funding for improvements to the bike park, and we weren't able to provide that, but we connected them with our contacts over at Meta, and they were able to secure an extra, I believe it was an extra $15,000. So trying to leverage those relationships as much as we can. Crook County Fair and 4-H auctions, obviously, really important for us. Here's a couple of photos just from last year. We bought the Grand Champion steer from Paisley Reynolds, which is such a privilege. And Caden there, the pen of rabbits photo down on the bottom. And we've shown up here at the Crook County Fair for many years. I believe the first time Jake showed up was in 2017. It's just a really important part of, I think, New Sun's culture is to be there and show up and connect with the community. We attend many fairs across the state, and people from all across the New Sun team, they fly in if they're. We have a couple of people based in Arizona, and they'll come to Oregon and they'll show up at the fair and meet everyone and meet the kids, and it's a really obviously great experience that we're really proud of and really enjoy. So when we are buying animals across the state, we end up with a lot of meat. And so we do our best to distribute that kind of locally to where we are, where we're buying the animals. So we do a lot through the 1017 project here. Wasco Fair, we donate to the Mop and Food Bank. We do Shriners, senior centers, the high schools. We, use Butcher Boys down the street and serve beef at the Christmas party. We partnered this year actually, or brought Solve Solar Construction, which is the one that built our project, and they have a community benefits fund, and they'd never been to a county fair. So we brought Solve over, and we were able to have them match a lot of the donations we were making, and sort of helping support them in the process of buying animals at the fair as well. So we helped deliver some of that meat back to the Solve office. I dropped some off to Paisley Reynolds' family this year too. Here's a handful of other investments we made, specifically in scholarships and education. All of these, I think, were actually just in the last month through the Rural Oregon Community Foundation scholarships, the Cook County Rotary on the Radio, and Powell Butte Community Charter School. Next on the list is the New Sun Climate and Ag Scholarships. Many of you have probably heard from me about this. This is New Sun's really unique scholarship program where we invite students who are graduating seniors from across the state, in select counties to write essays about the impacts of climate change on their community, specifically around agriculture and ranching. And what is really unique about this program is that we invite people from all over the state, elected officials, community leaders, nonprofit leaders, New Sun staff, to read and review the essays. And so getting these stories out about the impacts of climate and these communities and the stories that these students and reflections have to share are really powerful. So being able to engage, connect these different communities together around this issue has been really insightful. And every year we've awarded scholarships to Prineville students. Here's a short list, I know I'm running out of time, of other investments or sort of sponsorships we've made in Prineville. This is me and Andrea at the Hoedown a couple years ago. And I'll just talk briefly about one more project. This is an example. This is an early donation that Jake made back in 2020, I believe, which was a big investment to help build out the Harney District Hospital Specialty Care Clinic in Burns. And this has had a huge impact on the community, bringing healthcare services that were previously only available in Bend over to the Burns area. So this is a really amazing story, and I'm going to not have time to tell it today, but it's kind of one example of sort of the expansive thinking that New Sun has about how to really have an impact in a community. And yeah, I'll just end it there. I got in just under 10 minutes. If you have any questions, please let me know. Here's my contact information. Again, I'd love to share a deeper dive in this. We've got a lot of really exceptional stories across the state of what we're doing, and I'd love to brainstorm ideas that you have at a later date. Yes.
As common as much as a question. Gave a lot of money for that Grand Champion steer last year.
Yeah.
Being a former member of 4-H FFA sale committee, the people that probably need it the most are the ones that nobody knows. Those kids that count on their grandparents, their moms and dads, and maybe a connection in there somewhere. But contact with a sale committee member can spread that out, and you'll get more bang for your buck because you're going to associate with more of those people that raised the stock.
Yeah.
And just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah. A sale committee member, can I reach out to you following this meeting to put me in touch with somebody that I could connect with prior to the fair? Great. We do pool donations and add-on donations often as well to supplement the animals that we're buying, but I'd love to connect with someone personally. Thank you.
At your organization for how much they expended on that. It's
Yeah.
very generous.
Yeah. Thanks. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to council business. So we have two proclamations. First one is proclamation for May as Foster Care Month. And so I will read both proclamations. Foster Care Month. So whereas the children of Prineville, Oregon are our most precious resource, and ensuring their safety, well-being, and future success is essential to a strong and thriving community. And whereas in Oregon, thousands of children are in foster and relative care, and in Prineville, there are currently 44 youth experiencing foster care. And whereas the month of May is recognized nationally as Foster Care Month, a time to raise awareness and honor the dedication and compassion to foster parents, kinship caregivers, social workers, advocates, and volunteers who support children and families. And whereas the court-appointed special advocate, volunteers, and other community members play a pivotal role and ensuring that children in foster care have a consistent voice and the support they need to navigate a complex system. And whereas increased awareness and community involvement can strengthen the foster care system and help ensure that every child has access to safe, stable, and nurturing relationships. And whereas by working together, we can help ensure that every child in Prineville, Oregon has the opportunity to grow, thrive, and reach their full potential. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Prineville City Council does hereby proclaim the month of May 2026 as Foster Care Month in Prineville and encourages all residents to recognize the important role of foster families, advocates, and community partners, and to support efforts that promote the safety, permanency, and well-being of children in foster care. All right, so the next item is another proclamation for the Vietnamese American Remembrance Day. I have had a little correspondence with the group that usually comes here, and they have actually an event going on this week, so they weren't going to be here. But I did say that I would love to sponsor their proclamation again. But proclamation, April 30th, Vietnamese American Remembrance Day. Whereas Vietnamese refugees have proudly resided in the city of I think that the city of Prineville, the state of Oregon, since the conclusion of the Vietnam War on April 30th, 1975. And whereas Vietnamese Americans have put forth their full toiling energy building the city of Prineville, the state of Oregon, in a multitude of prominent areas, including industry, economy, culture, education, and military service. And whereas Vietnamese Americans have counted on the state of Oregon, USA, as being their second heart, mind, and family homeland. And whereas every year Vietnamese Americans observe Remembrance Day on April 30th to solemnly honor the 58,220 American servicemen and servicewomen, including 810 servicemen and servicewomen from the state of Oregon, 3 fallen soldiers from the city of Prineville, and more than 300,000 South Vietnamese soldiers who sacrificed their lives in the line of duty for freedom and democracy in South Vietnam from November 1955 to April 1975. Now, therefore, I, the Mayor of Prineville and the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim April 30th to be recognized as Vietnamese American Remembrance Day. I resolutely encourage all to join in the reverent recognition of this cultural heritage observance. Yeah. Took me till I was a little older, and I've shared this story I think a few times, but I have a friend that I went to school with who still lives here, uh, who I didn't realize till later, and we were probably in junior high or high school, that they immigrated here from Vietnam. They were actually picked up in Hanoi and brought to San Francisco, their entire family. And I really need to, and I didn't get a chance this year. I was going to try to get him to come down here for this. I would love to see them here because he's been a member of this community since I was born, or close to it. So it'd be really nice to see them here if I could get him. So I don't know if he ever leaves his house anymore though. So yeah. All right, so we'll move on to consideration of supporting a request for legislative action on investing in Highway 97 safety improvement and operations. Councilor Smith.
So I shared the letter, and it's in your packet here, at the last council meeting, and asked you all to consider whether the city wanted to support and kind of sign on as a sponsor of this action. And I guess we're to the point of discussing that and making that decision.
Well, good idea. You and I have talked, and I have written a letter in the past to Vicki Brees Iverson. And in my particular case, I was talking about the intersection of 26 and 97 Mathis. And you come in there when the weather's a little bit bad, with that flat plane coming through there, you can easily go past the turn. It's not lighted well, there's no recessed, no things in the ground, and of course, it's told me that with something above ground is gonna get taken off by a blade, a snowplow. So I think that, think about things like that, and then the death rate. Just think that it's a good idea, and I was curious, what's the number one place for death on highways? Highway 101 on the coast, which I did not know, but anyway, anything we could do to support the improvements, because if you read your information there, it tells about the number of places where it's converted from one lane to two, isn't that much. And what we could do to, I guess, expand that.
Steve,
I have concerns about it, in as much as with the best interest or best intent, I am concerned that by focusing so much on 97, it will detract from the potential spending of resources in other communities, other areas. We have a couple of critical intersections in between Redmond and Prineville and in Prineville itself that really need to be addressed. Are those going to be mothballed or set aside, or gee, someday we'll get around to it because we've got all of the dollars focused on 97? And so that's my anxiety about moving forward to this. And can we be assured that these funds will be totally separate and not adversely affect the funds that will come to Central Oregon otherwise?
and I don't think anybody can say that. All I can do is pass on what the sponsors of this have been told from the legislature and the people they've talked to, that it will not affect STIP dollars and those historical funding pots if this, but you know, I don't think there's anybody that can say for sure about that. So I understand and actually support your concerns.
Thank you.
And I kind of agree with Steve, but I also look at this as like the people from Prineville and Crook County use 97 a lot too. And I think as a District 4, which we're all part of, I think we all need to support the jobs and the infrastructure improvements in the whole region. So I think if we help, out on this, when it comes our turn, hopefully they'll return the favor.
Agreed.
Scott, where is the Powell Butte Highway in the numbered areas where they put priority?
Well, the Powell Butte Highway 126 intersection with this discretionary funding that has been set aside, that the OTC has asked each act, there's 4 acts. We're Central Oregon Area Commission on Transportation, and there's 3 others, to provide their top 5 priorities, and then also their second 5, just in case if one of those projects in the top 5 were to receive some funding federally or something like that, the next out of the next 5 can move up. And I can tell you that intersection proper was ranked number 5 in the top 5. And that's with the intent that, it's once again, COAC's recommendations go to the OTC, and ultimately they make that decision. That it's felt like those top 5 projects will get funding. And then our 3rd Street project was ranked number 6. So
Well, kind of on that note, can I ask if the O'Neill Highway intersection made the list at all?
No, and to be honest with you, these lists come from
Okay.
agencies.
Mm-hmm.
So Caroline and Casey and I got together and, we talked about the Peters and North Main intersection. We talked about several different projects, but we come up with the project, and the only project that we submitted for this ask, for projects was our Third Street project, because we felt like it had the best chance because most of the design has already been done. The full project was out there, and as we moved along, because it takes so long to develop a project, that costs skyrocketed, and that's why we had to take out the paving and, the streetscape and this type of stuff. So quite frankly, in regards to O'Neill and 126,
Yeah.
it's identified in the city of Prineville TSP,
Mm-hmm.
but to my knowledge, nobody from the city has put that project forward other than through our TSP process.
Gotcha. Seems like a cheaper one to target, just a forced merge lane, turning left off of O'Neill Highway to, use a center lane to move over instead of trying to cross both lanes, where that's, from my understanding, most of the accidents happen that way. So
Yeah, but I'm not going to say that that we have to
Pretty
remember
low on
that
ODOT radar.
That's a state highway.
Right, exactly.
And I don't believe that a transportation engineer will say that that is a doable solution. So,
Hmm.
it's, I believe, got higher costs than what some might think, but
So are you, back to this.
Yes.
You're just asking for a letter that in support of this. And
I don't think you were here
no,
that meeting, Mayor. Through our COAC meeting and our COAC organization, Commissioner Taylor from Jefferson County, he is the chair of COAC, and he has presented this, and he'd asked if all the jurisdictions in Central Oregon would support. And in regards to how they would like to see the city support this, I guess if we decide to go along with this, I would ask that Lisa contact Commissioner Taylor and ask just exactly how they would like to see that, and that, but that's where that come from, Mayor.
okay.
Of course, everybody, Madras, Redmond, Bend, Lapine, they're all signing on because they're on
yeah,
97.
that's their artery.
Sisters and Prineville were the kind of the outliers, and
I agree with Councilor Bremer. We use it.
Yeah.
I use it all the time.
Yeah.
So, although, even from being here, I would love to see support in the future for some projects we have here. Shane's named one good one. That intersection out in Bellevue, I would hope that these same people would say, hey, yes, that's a good in the future, even though they may not have any influence, but still support us in that endeavor. So,
and one thing I would like to say in response to that comment is, keep in mind the intent that these three counties have is for the legislature to find unallocated dollars, whether that's state dollars or federal dollars, that in their mind that would not take away from programs already in place for this to be separate, that's just for that corridor.
Well, like, so you know, I have the same reservations because I want to make sure we're taken care, but I agree that, you know, I have no problem telling them that I would support it. It's just me personally though, so.
No, I support it.
I can support it, but I would want to go on record stating that I expect the other counties to support us when our need exists and to not back away from that.
And agree, and I'm on record at COAC of presenting the same concerns that you brought up, Councilor Effelman, in regards to taking away from, you know, what little funds we're told are out there for our own projects.
I mean, granted, as has been spoken, we all use 97 and we rely on 97 and we will continue to rely on 97 as a primary route for supplies and materials to come in. But we need to protect ourselves as well.
Do you,
Is that enough, Jared, or do we need?
No, I think you need a motion for approval of the letter. So you would need a motion to support
Highway
a
number
motion to support the requested letter from that committee. Was it COCO?
COAC.
COAC, my apologies. So if you'd like to make that motion, feel free.
I make a motion that we send a letter to COAC supporting their letter to make US 97 safer.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Right, passed.
Thank you.
And Lisa, you're gonna take care of that request to find out what,
I'll get with you after. So,
thank you. Thanks for bringing it up, Scott.
Yep.
Alright, so let's see. Okay, so item number 6, legislative amendments to chapter 2 and 5 of the comprehensive plan and economic opportunities analysis. This will be a public hearing. Mr. Smith and Mr. Reed, did you?
Yeah, prior to you opening the public hearing, I'll just give a brief introduction for council tonight and for the audience. So as you just announced, this is for amendments to chapters 2 and 5 of the comprehensive plan and updated economic opportunity analysis. In your published packet are the amendments to chapters 2 and 5. In the printed or the online version is the entire economic opportunity analysis. They were not printed, or that portion was not printed due to just economic reasons. It's a very weighty document, but for anybody that wishes to review that document, they're able to do so online. As you all know, we started this process in 2024. The first version of the updates to the economic opportunity analysis was brought last year, along with a proposal to expand the UGB. Council did not approve that particular version, asked staff to continue to work on an update to the economic opportunity analysis and whatever changes that brought. Our staff has been working diligently with our third-party consultants and legal counsel in regards to bringing this next version to you all tonight. This is an opportunity for a public hearing to allow staff that opportunity to make that initial presentation. This has been presented to the Planning Commission, but more as courtesy to the Planning Commission rather than formal public hearings. This was of such great interest to council last year. We wanted to have it all at the council level. So tonight will be the opportunity to allow Mr. Smith to make this presentation, as well as to have any sort of other interested persons making sort of comments to council. The goal, or my thought based upon the history of and the interest of this particular topic, was to allow council the opportunity to have 2 public hearings. So tonight will be our first, and then my suggestion is to continue the public hearing to May 26th to allow you all the opportunity to digest all the information that is being provided tonight, as well as the weighty information within your packets. So you'll be able to cross-reference what you've already reviewed after being reviewed all that public testimony tonight. Have another opportunity on May 26th to hear more testimony if anybody wishes to speak to it, also to have additional questions at that time as well. We do have tonight, if you wish to ask any questions, you're obviously able to do so. We have Mr. Smith that'll be presenting. We also have on Zoom our legal counsel in regards to this particular issue, and that is Kelly Hudipole of Kellington Law Group. Excuse me. She'll be able to answer any questions. However, just to let you know, if it's an attorney-client type question, then she will so advise and be able to provide that information to you in the interim period after tonight, prior to your next public hearing. And with that, you can open the public hearing.
Yeah, I will open the public hearing.
All right, good evening, council. For the record, Joshua Smith, Planning Director, City of Prineville. We've gone through this presentation before. It's relatively the same, but I'm going to be basically updating you on what happened and in some of the differences and changes that we've made through the EOA process as we kind of relooked at it after last year's process. Application number AM 2025-104. That's the application number. I changed it just so we didn't confuse it with the previous process and get these mixed up. It is essentially the same document that went forward and was updated. The proposal, Chapter 2 and Chapter 5 are out of our comprehensive plan. The EOA is kind of a satellite document that replaces Chapter 5. So the executive summary will be part of Chapter 5 and then the goals and policies. But the EOA itself, that large document, is a standalone satellite document like a transportation plan or a water and sewer master plan. So it replaces Chapter 5 and it estimates the commercial and industrial land need for the next 20 years. Applicable criteria, there are many. You can go through the ORSs. The OARs are primarily what you look at when you process these or create these documents. That's what our consultants mostly focused on. We have a comprehensive plan that is being updated as this gets adopted. It essentially updates our comprehensive plan. Land use code chapters just go through our process for how to do public hearings and update legislative amendments. Notice was sent out DLCD in February again for the new document, February 11th, 26. Newspaper notice went out on the 14th. You did receive comments. They should be in front of you. We got those today. So they weren't provided in your packet from the Central Oregon Land Watch. If you wanted to peruse those, one of the reasons we want to have two heatings so you can actually absorb a lot of this information. So brief background, we'll kind of go over this again. Comprehensive plan was originally adopted, first city's comprehensive plan in 2007. That had an economic opportunities analysis in it, and it was based on what they called the Bankendorf report from 2002. So the data was old even before we adopted it. There was a couple of updates, but our current Chapter 5 is extremely out of date, needs to be updated. So we are obligated as a city, DLCD has mentioned this. You need to do this before you can move forward on any future expansions or even some of our larger zone changes that may affect that were in that old comp plan, which are also in this new document. The draft EOA is an update, kind of a continuation of the version presented to you in 25. The reason, and as you go through the timeline that Jared touched on, when we got down to June 24th and the council decision and kind of withdrew those documents, there was a pointed effort to say, we're withdrawing these documents, but you need to bring this EOA back to us. I said at the time, I feel like there's been so many changes over the last year that this document needs to be different, specifically in the buildable lands inventory. So that's what we did. And then starting this year, as Jared mentioned, I brought this informational presentation to the Planning Commission, so they were up to speed on what we were doing. I gave them the final documents in February, and then every Planning Commission meeting, I've been just putting it on the agenda to see if anybody wants to come in and chat about it. The first meeting, I think in January and February, we had some attendance. I believe Robin was there, but there was no conversation. So comprehensive plan, I just kind of want to briefly touch on these and what they do. Comprehensive plan is essentially a document that has goals and policies. It goes through characteristics of your community. It essentially what the council can use to inform their decisions on a variety of things. The reason these two chapters are being focused on is because number one, chapter 5 is our economic chapter, and chapter 2 is our zoning chapter. So the two affect each other. So they have not been updated since 2007. They're very old. They have concepts that were thought about then, but we have a lot, our reality has changed since then. So I felt there was an opportunity to bring those up to date, kind of reassess those goals and policies and eliminate some of those things that we have been doing in our other chapters that we've come to council before. So as it comes to the goals and policies, like in the housing chapter, the parks chapter, the transportation, public facilities, we've been consolidating those goals and policies, eliminating the programs, getting rid of the statements and specific tasks, and really focusing on what's the goal and what are the policies associated with that goal. Those policies then direct land use code, for example. You have a policy that says you want to have X, and that generally translates into some type of code in your land use code. That's what those policies are supposed to do. And there was just a lot of fluff in our old document that was originally built in 2007 that really didn't say anything or do anything. So those were all kind of removed. The existing goals and the existing policies were edited. So this is something I worked with the Planning Commission on. We went through, and anything that was redundant, any policy that was found in one of the programs that we thought would fit up in a policy was moved. We initially, and like you in your comment packet, you see some exhibits with some track changes. I initially had some track change documents that I could provide you, but they're very confusing to read because you don't know where everything went. So it's almost easier if the council wants, they just look at the old and read the new. It's not an onerous process. You can see where the policies have moved. I would encourage you to do that just in case I missed something. If there's a policy or something in the old comp plan that you thought should be moved forward that wasn't or isn't followed in those goals and policies, that's part of why we want to take some time. And if there's something missing that you feel is necessary, that's the time to bring it up and say, I want to add these terms or words to this policy. So that's kind of what I've did. It's mostly me doing this. So it is nice to have another set of eyes. The Planning Commission did review this multiple times. And then our council land use attorney did look at them. And I think from the documents you had last time to this time, they're virtually the same. There was a couple of changes to add the actual numbers to one of the policies and such, but they're essentially the same documents that you looked at. The chapter documents are essentially the same as you had last year and the ones that the Planning Commission recommended. This is just kind of a visual representation of our comp plan. Start out with state laws and goals that kind of trickles down into each community, into your comprehensive plan, which then informs your implementing ordinances. We have 8 chapters. That's how ours currently set up, how it was originally set up. We're looking at 2 and 5, and essentially that's kind of how it wraps around. The 5 kind of has a change, can change your urban growth boundary. It can inform your zoning, which affects your comp plan map, which affects your chapter 2. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We've actually updated all these chapters except for 2 and 5 and 1. So we've kind of been doing the same thing systematically. So then we move on to the economic opportunities analysis. We've gone over this numerous times, what they are, what they do. Of course, for the record, I have to do it again. The primary purpose is this is a data-driven analysis. A lot of it's in the buildable lands inventory. And population data and employment data and all those type of stuff. But it essentially justifies one, city zoning. So if you have some zoning that you don't think you need or not, it allows you to change it. Usually it's a significant amount of area, not small individual sites. And it allows you to expand your urban growth boundary for commercial and industrial uses. So that it has to inform. You have to basically prove you need the use or that you need the space to do those types of things. This EOA does that. Again, inventories commercial, industrial, buildable lands, identifies city economic development potential, forecast population, employment, and estimates the land need. Why do we do this? One, ensure enough employment lands going forward. So we're building a lot of housing. Where they're going to work, we need to continue. That's goal 9. That's just the statewide planning goal 9. You have to kind of have a balance of both. And that's what we're constantly working on. We have a lot of residential ground, and we've been building our industrial ground significantly up on the grade since 2007, 2004, really. And we're going to need to expand again. That's not a question of if, it's when. The other is to preserve farm and ranch land. This is probably the key point in why we even do all this analysis. This is originally Senate Bill 100, back in the Tom McCall days. The whole point of the land use process was to preserve farm and ranch land, keep our urban growth cities small so they don't sprawl out. That is one of the primary purposes and why we are so careful on where we expand things and how we do it. And then the other is to ensure land is utilized wisely within the urban growth boundaries. So part of this process is to say, okay, you need this much property. How much do you have inside? Let's use that first. And then that informs how much you think you need to expand in the 20-year process.
Josh, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
On that point?
Mhm.
Ensuring land within the existing UGB is used efficiently. Where I live, there's a field right behind me that's UGB.
Yep.
And then the school owns the field across the street from it. Even though that's in the UGB and it's available land, what if that landowner doesn't want to give it up? Then what do we do in that
So
situation?
that's part of, and I've had this conversation with DLCD before and other entities. What happens if? And we do have this issue. We have large landowners in prime. So that's a housing issue. That's a residentially zoned area. It's when you go to, so say no one's developing and we have this demand for housing and everybody's like, we don't want to do it. Well, that's part of your process. When you go to expand your urban growth boundary, you have to somehow vet that and have some proof that they aren't willing to develop. And the same thing would happen for industrial ground, although it hasn't. I brought this up because we had the large property south of town, 300 some odd acres. It's been sitting there since the 08 crash. And because of that, and some of the properties like Lynch's property north of you, is we don't have any reason to expand for housing because we have so much ground inside the urban growth boundary. That would be the only reason, but we would have to show and put together a finding to prove that. And at that point, then you might be able to do it.
So when that land comes in, does that property owner have to agree that we would like to expand into their property to put it into the?
That's generally preferable. I mean, theoretically, no, I guess you could do it, but normally that process is part of that process is where you're going and who's acceptable and who's not. And
I guess it really didn't.
The last large expansion we did was 2004, and that brought in the Lynch property, and several others around there. But
They're still farming it for now.
Yeah. So generally, yes, you want to have consensus and you want those people, and it's to their benefit. It improves their property value. But that's what the urban growth boundary is for. Because eventually we'll have to extend and you can have limits. Like this would be a policy, for example, when going back to those policies that, we back then when I first started work here, we didn't want to go north of Barnesby Road. That was kind of a council policy at the time. We're not going north because that's high value farmland, right? Don't even think about it. And so that was something that came up again and again and again that we're not even going to look up there. So those are types of things that can come up. Any other questions before we move on?
Thank you for answering that.
Sure. I do want to, so we have this economic opportunities analysis. We put it together. It has a need for land. What we've done in this and what our consultant basically advised us to do was use this target industry approach. This is relatively a new way of doing things in this state goal 9 process. And what it means is you estimate land demand using site requirements. So instead of saying, well, we need 700 acres, let's just go expand 700 acres and see what happens. It basically says you need to show the types of industries you're looking at and what types of acreages you need and target those types of things. And then the restrictions are put on those properties as they come in. So this is that protection criteria. It was actually in the ordinance for the UGB expansion last time. It was at the bottom. Most likely what we would do is create an overlay zone and put these protections in that zone. It basically essentially says, don't rezone it to commercial and residential. Don't break it up into a bunch of smaller parcels. Restricting compatible uses in adjacent lands, that's a little harder to do, but that's goes back to siting where your next expansion is. It doesn't mean you can't do some smaller subordinate uses. You can, and it doesn't mean you can't find a different use, an unanticipated use that might come in. And you just need to prove that that use has the same economic and community benefit as the types of uses that you targeted. So they leave it a little bit open, but there are restrictions placed on these sites as you bring them in, so they're used for the intended purpose. And so that's how we're setting this up, and how this document reads is it's for those target industries and those site characteristics. And you'll notice on page 32, it starts out, most of them are manufacturing. Basically, we just put every code for manufacturing in there. There's the biomass is still in there, and I think there's waste management, data centers, and then there's some subordinate categories. It doesn't actually expand for that use, right? It doesn't say you have to do those uses. That's just the target that we have in the document. So if it comes up in the future, we have that as a need. And then we'll have to figure out how we could protect that land when we come in. This is most likely what we would do is just create a new zone for it. And then, so this is the process we kind of went through to figure out how much land we need. This is the buildable lands process. And this was really the crux of the issue when we had gone through that process for so long. I recognized that we had done so much development on the hill that our buildable lands inventory was already out of date. And actually right now it's a little bit out of date, but only a few months. So first you take your city, you remove the constraints, that gives you kind of what's left over. Of course, residential is taken out. You take out all the developable land, and you only look at the vacant and partially developed properties within those kind of commercial and industrial zones. So you can kind of, and you create this map. All public properties removed, so like the airport comes out, fairgrounds, any kind of public entity, National Guard. And you come up with this, and there's definitions, and I put the page numbers in the chapter there, or in the EOA, so you can go to it, to how they define what's developed, what's partially developed, what's considered vacant. And you create these maps. And this is all done in GIS, so the totals come out, in the acreages and such. And you end up with a map of your buildable lands. So currently, the EOA is essentially showing 111 acres of buildable commercial, 1,250 acres of buildable industrial in various types of zones. In our comp plan, which is what you're seeing here, we basically have some very common zones. So we have outline commercial, could be multiple different types of commercial zoning, but the comp plan just has it as one. We have light industrial, heavy industrial, and mixed use. Those are kind of our categories. Airport, we technically count as industrial for our purposes, but not when you count it in here because it's highly restricted. So total acres, commercial and industrial, 1361. We also looked at places, and this actually comes out of our old comp plan, of what might we want to rezone that is currently industrial. And these properties keep coming up. They used to be called the Smith and Roden properties. Now they're called the Porphyry and Roden and Crawford properties. If you know City of Prineville, you know these properties sit up on a bench above the industrial area, very close to residential. All this is residential on this side, and these are zoned heavy industrial, trying to prevent another kind of wood grain issue where we have this heavy industrial use sitting right next to residential uses. So how can we potentially rezone those to something other than industrial? Could be mixed use, could be commercial, probably not that much commercial, but most likely it'll come into as residential or some type of mixed use, maybe a commercial node here or there. But these are were in our last comp plan, and they are remaining in this comp plan as an area that needs to be looked at and potentially rezoned. So this goes back to that policy of city zoning and how it affects chapter 2. And so the conclusion, so we had that original EOA document. The buildable lands inventory was relooked at, based primarily on the fact that the Apple site had been considered developed. That took a large chunk of ground out of that partially vacant situation. We also had a tremendous amount of development in our Tom McCall area that wasn't being counted. If you actually look on the map, there's probably 6 more lots that have already developed since we started this process the second time. So after we went back through that exercise of the buildable lands inventory, we came up with the commercial and small industrial didn't change much. There's a few tweaks to the numbers, but essentially we're looking at a need of 85 total acres. And then a Prineville already has 111. So that's why I put the red box there. That's the full stop. We don't need more commercial ground. Small industrial sites, the need shows about 46. We have up to 94. So that's a full stop. We don't need the small, industrial subdivision type lots right now. When it got to the large industrial sites, just like last time, we showed a need for 2 sites, and I think 500 acres. With that Apple site being removed, we have a need now for this 9 sites, and we only have 6. So there's this need now that the size didn't really change much. That 251 stayed pretty static, but that the need went up from 503, I believe it was, to 755 into 3 different sites, as our need for the next 20 years for that large lot industrial property. So what that does in conclusion, so this is the exhibit 1 that comes out of the EOA itself. Need 755, 3 sites averaging 251, and then there's that potential to rezone that 109 acres, which by the way are counted in our buildable lands. They are still counted as industrial in the buildable lands. They haven't been removed from that. So that's why the 109 doesn't affect it the same way. But that is essentially where we're at. I did want to say, when you go through the document, again, there's not a track change version of this EOA compared to the old. There was very slight changes. There's a ton of appendices that were added to this, not added, but that are on the back end of that EOA. That's all the backup data. There are tables of numbers and all kinds of data that goes into this document that could be provided. Only the site needs analysis, I think several people had commented on that about what they say. Those were slightly changed, but remained fairly the same. We did look at the biomass one a little bit harder to see if there was something that would be more different there. But if you read it, it's roughly, I think we softened kind of some of the rail stuff just so that it would be more apt to be put in other places in the community. Things like that came out, but the document's largely the same other than what the need shows at the end of the day. So are there any questions at this point before we open it up to the public?
Is there any I don't know how to say it, conflicts maybe with county zoning as far as what the city would possibly plan on moving into and bringing into urban growth boundary?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the county is almost entirely EFU, other than some industrial, basically up La Monta. They have a lot of industrial down La Monta, primarily because of the rail, and that's where that old industrial area is. But other than that, it's EFU all the way around. We've kind of used that as our default urban reserve until they changed some of the solar rules, and then they started building solar everywhere. So that kind of screwed us over on some places we can expand to. Yeah.
Or possible future usage for
it has limited us on the bench. Yes. That is a problem. And we've addressed that with the state, but it hasn't really changed.
And once again, this EOA is required by the state.
EOA is required by the state. This is the document we need to update our comp plan in order to even entertain any type of expansion or significant zone change like I showed. Okay. I'll just step down here.
We open it up to the public now?
I would, yes, I would advise that if
So-
anybody has anything they'd like to say to council.
Yeah, if anybody does have anything they'd like to say to council, please step up and feel free. Also, via Zoom, is there anybody on the Zoom call that would like to speak to this?
Anyone on Zoom?
No, Daryl's saying no.
Mayor Beebe and members of the council, I just want to take a brief moment to introduce myself. I'm Kelly Hudipole. I'm here in the capacity as acting city's legal counsel with respect to the EOA and the BLI, the comp plan amendments to chapter 2 and 5, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have or provide additional information if you'd like any.
Thank you very much. And I didn't miss you, Kelly. I was just, I figured we would come to you in a little bit, but thank you for jumping in and introducing yourself to us.
Thank you, Mayor Beebe.
Great. Good evening, Mayor Beebe, Prineville City Council members. It's good to see you again. I was here about a year ago. My name is Robin Hayakawa. I'm a staff attorney for Central Oregon Land Watch. Our address is 2843 Northwest Lolo Drive, Suite 200, Bend, Oregon 97703. For those who aren't familiar with Land Watch, we're a 40-year-old organization, 501c3 nonprofit. Our programmatic work, we advocate for creating well-planned cities, protecting wild and open spaces, and then defending working farm and forest lands. Want to start by thanking City Council for the opportunity to comment during the public hearing, and also thank Josh. That I feel like I learned a fair amount during that presentation. Goes to some of the things we submitted in my written comments. Relatedly, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to get those over sooner than the day of. That wasn't intentional, just sometimes have a lot of work to do, and so it ends up being that way. And I'm glad there will be a continuance. I think that's appropriate, and I appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to start out saying is that at Landwatch, we're not inherently or necessarily opposed to data centers, or certainly other industrial manufacturing development in the city of Prineville or in the surrounding area. Having gotten to know the people in the place over the last couple of years, I can certainly appreciate the benefits that industrial and data center development has brought to Prineville. That said, I do have some comments about the applications before you, and the first comment has to do with the process. Josh spoke to some of this and I think alleviated some of the concerns I have about the process. But I spoke with Josh at the end of last week, and I was pretty surprised to hear from him that the city had received 0 public comments about this application, especially given the intensity of interest that took place last year. And I realized that there is no UGB amendment, expansion, no proposed ultimate use. And last year it was the biomass facility that I think we can all agree was sort of like a lightning rod. At the same time, I think it would be a mistake to assume that the people of Prineville, or the fact that there has been no public comment that I'm aware of, that's an indication that the people of Prineville don't care about the development future of the city. I've seen the conversations online. I've talked about it with friends and people I've met out here, and I feel really confident that people are interested in how the city will grow going forward, and that I feel like that again makes it surprising that there's no public comment here. So the first thing I would like to encourage the city to do is make the whole process more approachable, and if possible, make effort to solicit further public input on this process. I think one thing that can be done is the redlined version that Josh very willingly, generously shared with me. Could be part of the the packet. It doesn't need to be printed, but it could be available online. I realize that you can compare the previous versions, but sometimes seeing the extent of the changes in red line can make it a little bit more clear. I found it pretty noticeable how much was being removed from chapters 2 and 5. And so it's a pretty substantial comp plan amendment. I tend to agree with Josh that there's certainly some fluff in there and redundancy, but it'd be I would find it, and I think others would find it more useful to have a more detailed staff report that talks about some of the precise decisions that were made. And city council can gauge whether that is in line with what they would like to see from the comprehensive plan. Yeah, and then the other thing I was going to do is going to ask for a continuance. So we already got that. And what I would say is that I'm not asking the city of Prineville to engage in process for the sake of process. I'm sure, yeah, Land Watch, I'm a land use attorney. Sometimes we like process for the sake of process, but I do think that in my research about the EOA, Prineville's approach here and the lack of community input and community visioning process is something of an outlier. I looked at the 2025 EOA for the city of Klamath Falls, and they brought together a citizen advisory committee to help guide the process. I looked at the 2025 EOA for the city of Ashland, and they, I think, took it even maybe a little further where they formed committees, they distributed surveys, brought together focus groups, and gathered data that informed the conclusions of the EOA. And so I would strongly encourage the city of Prineville to do the same. And then more to the substance of the EOA, I brought this up last year. I still think that the methodology used by the city's consultants arrives at an overestimation of the industrial land that's needed. I think the methodology could be faulty. Namely, the EOA estimates that there's 3 250-acre properties needed based on the current average size of properties. But the reality is that any site over 50 acres in size is considered large, a large site, and evidence in the record that the EOA is based on says that heavy industrial sites only need 25 to 100 acres, and data centers can exist on properties as small as 25 total acres. I realize there's some large data centers in Prineville, so I'm not suggesting that a couple 25-acre parcels will do the job, but I think there could be an examination of that methodology. Yeah, and so I wrote more in my written comments, and I hope you'll read them. And then finally, last thing, I did go back and I listened to it at the time, and I re-listened to the workshop, and I wasn't there. I wasn't able to attend, but I understand it wasn't very well attended. But I do think that between the community workshop and the process that we engaged in last year, some clear conclusions can be drawn. And the biggest thing that I took away from that is that city and county residents are not interested in a biomass facility in the La Manta industrial corridor. And I don't think we need a focus group or surveys to sort of back up that assumption. We were all there last year, and I feel like that came out really strongly. And nonetheless, in these documents, I don't think that was reflected very well at all. Yes, the EOA says that rail is less essential, or perhaps not essential at all for a biomass facility, but I think it could be made clear that if a power plant is going to be sited in the city of Prineville, it should be done up the hill closer to the landfill. And that is what I took away from listening to the community workshop. With that, I welcome questions. Thank you for your consideration of my comments. And I will plan to be back here on the 26th. Thank you.
You have somebody else.
Oh, sorry, Drew. I wasn't moving forward. I'm
You were
just
just
looking.
skipping me. Julie Thompson, 5950 Northwest Green Valley Road in Prineville. And I kind of just wanted to point out a little bit of what Robin said, like the community not being involved in this tonight, I think has a lot to do with the wording on the agenda. I had no idea what the chapters 2 and 5 of the comprehensive plan and economic opportunity analysis meant, let alone what it would end up bringing or doing in the future. And I know it's a city thing and I live in the county, but it will affect county residents also. So I'm glad that there is a continuance also so that other people can get involved and maybe voice their opinions on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Guess I kind of have a question again.
Maybe we can include the acronym EOA on the next agenda alongside economic opportunity analysis.
That's what.
Is that what you're thinking?
Oh, well, I guess I was thinking, how could we explain, or put it on the agenda so it is more recognized?
Yeah.
Or,
Yes, we can do that on the council one. I've done that in all of my agendas. So, and it's been in every presentation we've given the last 4 times. We explained this every time. So I understand it's hard to pay attention to some wonky land use stuff, and it's hard to pay attention to stuff like that when it's not affecting you directly. And that's, I think, some of the issues. And like to Julie's point, these chapters, the goals and policies are what the council looks at to inform their decisions in the future. This is not making a decision.
Yeah.
And so to some of the UGB issues and whether we're not saying anything about not putting biomass down in Monta was because this isn't actually reviewing that. That would be done if we ever tried to cite something, one of these target industries at that time. So
The notice to the public hearing also was, or the notice for this public hearing, the proposal was more detailed than that particular sentence on the agenda. So just so that council's aware, it stated the city council is reviewing legislative amendments to the comprehensive plan, including the adoption of a new economic opportunities analysis, EOA. This analysis establishes the evidentiary basis for the city's commercial and industrial land needs over the next 20 years. Upon adoption, the EOA will replace Chapter 5 of the comprehensive plan and include corresponding updates to the goals and policies in Chapters 2 and 5. I understand that this is just a newspaper notice, but people that sign up for notices will get them delivered them automatically as well. So, I mean, it's always tough to figure out how the best way to do notices, but the public notice was much more expansive than what was on the agenda. And it'll be a similar notice for the May 28th, 6th meeting.
and I, kind of what Josh was saying, and I've talked with Julie about this before. There is sometimes council may understand what the acronyms are on here, but sometimes the public doesn't. And I get that. I understand that completely. You know, this may be a whole different conversation of how to get out that word, but our website has the opportunity for people to sign up for notifications. And in the past, I've done a little tutorial on my own personal page to show people how. Maybe it's time I do it again too, and just remind people to try to be out in the public as much as I can, and remind people that, hey, these notices are in the paper. You know, that's where we do what we are required by law, but I do try to share as much as I can too. So,
that was one of the other reasons I kept putting it on the planning commission's agenda for since January, to try to keep that interest for all those people that are signed up. So it helps kind of boost that focus until we have a better way of doing things. Our new website should be a little better once we get that online for these notices, but until then, we have what we have.
I'll make a comment, and those will probably get me in deep hot water. Gosh darn it. If I'm concerned about something in my community, I'm gonna reach out and ask questions on a daily basis in this. So, you know, I can't see us sending a mailer to every single residence in the city and the county I mean, sooner or later, in my opinion, just like I do on my own life, I reach out and I gather information if I feel like I need it. I'm sorry, but you know, we've in the past had people come and primarily from the county side that, well, we didn't know what you're going to talk about, so we thought we just better be here in case you talked about this or what. You know, that's one way. But I bet my right arm that if you call the phone number down here and ask for a explanation of exactly what's going to be talked about at the city council meeting on May 26th, every staff member will get you those answers.
I have a question. I guess I'd be addressing it more to Mr. Hayakawa than to you, Josh, but are you looking for a document that's in an edited format so you can see the strikeouts, the modifications, the inserts, the withdrawals?
Do you mind if I come back
No,
up?
go
Yeah. Thank you, Counselor Sumner. It's a good question. Josh actually already provided me with the redlined versions, and at least some of what I'm describing here, I think and to Counselor Smith's point, I agree. Someone could call and get some answers about what is this item on the agenda. At least some of what I'm talking about here is, and apologies to Josh, because this is going to sound like more work for Josh, but I would like to see more robust staff reports, especially for consequential land use applications like this. The staff report's 1 page. We're altering a document that is going to influence the development future of Prineville for 20 years and 2 chapters of the comprehensive plan, lopping off, I'm not exactly sure how many pages, but tens of pages from the comprehensive plan, tens of programs and policies from the comprehensive plan. The easiest way for me to find out, to get an idea of what's happening would be having it in writing ahead of time. Yes, I can call Josh, and again, thank you to Josh. He's taken my call every time, spent as long as I wanted with him, and I'm very grateful for that. But some more written information. This presentation, I don't know when Josh finished it, but this presentation could have been uploaded to the city website ahead of time, and someone could click through the slides, things like that. And so, I don't agree that the language in the notice is sufficient for a layperson to understand what's going on, and I don't agree that you can summarize these land use applications in 1 page. There's conclusions that were on this slideshow talking about developable land, maps, things like that. They could all go into a staff report ahead of time. So apologies to Josh. I'm talking about a lot more work for him, but I do think that that would make the process we're engaging in here a lot more transparent and approachable in my mind. And thank you.
Can I ask
Sure.
you
Yes.
about that too?
Yeah.
And I've asked this of other people on other issues, but
Right.
pertaining to this issue, what do you see, and Julie can answer this too, both of you, from an outside perspective, looking at what is in front of us today about this, what we're doing in this public hearing? What are ways, I know you just named one, like adding something to the website, but what are other ways that, what can we do to get that word out? Like, we put the public notice in the paper, but what could you say? I'm asking, what could you suggest? Or Julie, what would you suggest to help us to drive that in the future? So that we don't have a problem like we did a year.
Yeah, I agree, Mayor Beebe, and thank you for the question. I understand the seat, or I think I understand to an extent the seat you sit in too, because nobody wants to whip up a frenzy of underinformed people concerned about something that they really don't need to be concerned about, which is not what I'm saying happened last year. I think the process last year laid bare a lot of problems, and it was totally appropriate, and I commend the city council for tabling it. I named some of them. There could be a citizen committee. There could be surveys distributed. I've been on Facebook. I've seen the city of Prineville has been doing some cool publicity about water storage and the ASR system, things like that. So those are just off the top of my head, but frankly, as the public officials, you might be better positioned than I to know.
Well, Julie too, if you'd like to. Yeah, please. The reason I ask is because I get that question a lot. Like, how do we share this particular information with the public to make it so that people do get involved? And how do we do that? Now, I know you're involved because you're involved and you're paying attention.
I mean, this makes sense to you guys because you know about it, right? But most people don't know about it. And I agree with Scott. If people want to get involved, they need to look into it. They need to be active in it. But that being said, like this, and the part that Jared read, I have not seen that. I didn't even know that existed anywhere. I just got the agenda in an email. So, I think that, like saying that the EOA affects the urban growth boundary change or, but wording it out, not the acronyms in there, but things like that so that people understand that what you're looking at is the economic growth of Prineville that changes the city limits also and could affect people that are on the border of that. Because honestly, this meant nothing. I'm like, what is this? And I've dug into it and went, oh, I should probably go and just listen. So, but I don't know. I guess to be frank, just dumb it down. I don't know a better way to say it.
One page.
So.
I can tell you how I think. When I'm explaining things to people, and in my job role and talking to very high-tech people, I said, look, you have to bring it down to a redneck level because I speak redneck.
Right.
So
there you go.
Yeah.
So this gets back to why I don't do long staff reports for these wonky documents because I'm just regurgitating what's in the document and it's not helpful to have these two things going back and forth. So if I do a staff report for a subdivision, yeah, it's 15,
Thank you,
16 pages, right? In this case, what you're looking at is literally just the goals and policies that you guys feel are necessary. In this case, I tried to do a trash change. I did do trash change documents, but they are confusing as hell to look at, so I didn't put them out there. I've done that for every other comp plan amendment, and we've had it through the process. The transportation plan we did, I did an entire table that showed what went where, and you guys went, yeah, whatever. Let me just see what you got in the document. It's just like, okay, so I dumbed it down. Now I'm getting hit for dumbing it down, but
I'm not.
no, I understand that. So I keep the staff report short because I want you to read the document. The document is what it is. Those maps came out of the document, and just to put them in a staff report, now they're out of context. To put them back
to everybody
in the document. So
I stated at the beginning of this.
we are having another
The
communication.
reason we are having a second public hearing is to get feedback from council and the community about more things they would like to see. And then you will have an opportunity to have another meeting in a month, not in 2 weeks, to be able to further digest the information. Track changes will be added to the record and be uploaded online for folks to be able to view that, as well as the staff or presentation that was presented today. And perhaps, we'll look into a staff report, but that was the reason why we wanted to do this in a 2-step process because of our experiences from last year, right? We didn't want to just have one public hearing, I guess, to somebody's point, and then it wasn't publicized. So we're doing our best. We got another public hearing in a month. All the information's there. People can review. You all can look at it. And if you want a third public hearing, that's up to you.
But
Thank you.
I do want to clarify the track changes are probably not fully complete because we stopped doing them after the first hearing. So there are still other changes that went back and forth that aren't really captured. But we can put them in there so you can see the bulk of it. And then the EOA went through so many hands, economic opportunities analysis went through so many hands. I might be able to produce one in Word, but the page numbers changed, the table of contents, it's shifted, so it might not work.
And the only reason I ask those questions is because if we have a full month now till the next hearing, I would like to get that information out and let
Yeah.
people understand what we're looking at. At the year or whenever the thing with the biomass was, I wanted people involved. That's what I would like to see is tell us what you think. Look at the maps, get a hold of Josh, get a hold of staff. Maybe we post the maps and say, what's everybody think? Where's the best place to expand? And that's what
And this isn't actually looking at that at all.
no,
But I just want to be clear, this is not looking at that.
eventually get there, but we could let people know this is what's leading to the future. Is this guides us in the future?
Yeah,
if we need to
and we've
make
had
changes.
this in our comp plan since we had a comp plan. It's just we've never had to update it. So this is what we're doing.
Maybe that's what we need to do is tell people this just guides us.
Mhm.
This isn't making any changes. This is just guiding what we will do in the future if we have to make a change.
Right.
You know, and I'd just like to add, being a county commissioner for several years, we heard this same thing, form committees, and we tried it several times. There are people just don't want to serve, you know, on these committees. And if they start one within about a month, if you have 5 or 6 members, you got one or maybe 2, you know, and what do you do?
That's why I would like, if we could just share the information and make sure it's out there, then people can take a look at it. That's-
Yeah, and I think part of the
Without-
problem with sharing which the information has been shared numerous times. I think it's hard. I mean, it's hard to know what you're looking at. You know, someone who doesn't work and sit in my desk doesn't know what a chapter, they don't know what this does.
Gentlemen from Land Watch,
Yeah.
you're used to this. So talking about track changes and all that and what having it makes sense to you. But I can tell you, me, it's not going to make it. It's almost over my head, and that's why, you know, we have qualified staff to kind of help direct us and help us understand. But I don't need a response. I just want to make that comment that, you know, what seems clear to you, to the everyday person, probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
Are you talking about this, Kelsey?
We are still in the testimony.
We are still in testimony
That's
phase.
why I
Yep.
was at
Feeling inspired.
testimony of this.
I won't go through all of this. I just wanted to make a couple quick comments and I can come back and expand on the 26th. But Kelsey Haskett, for the record, I'm the Prineville, Kirk County Economic Development Director with Economic Development for Central Oregon. A few things, to your point, this is solely administrative. It's just complying with state process for the overall comprehensive plan. I think it keeps getting tied into the UGB and they're completely separate. So this is just step one to pave a path forward for our future for the next 20 to 30 years, which is very important. But like you said, not making a decision. I will say we're currently at 5.9% unemployment, which is the highest it's been in years. We're typically in the 5-ish, 5.1 range, highest in the region. We have had some changes in industry, some shrinking of industry. So I think just being strategic about opportunities for the community, well, businesses are looking 10, 20, 30 years down the road. That was shared at the International Economic Development Conference in Detroit this past fall. So businesses know that there are constraints when it comes to land, infrastructure, things like that, and they're having to plan further ahead. So I think just being aware that this is a very long-term strategy for the community and for the next generation, and making sure that while people may not love uncertainty or change always, that there are opportunities for the youth of Crook County and for families to be able to stay local if they so choose to do that. So I will say too that I shared with Josh all of our leads from the past 3 to 5 years, industries, infrastructure requirements, acreage, job creation, investment, all of that. And the number of projects we've foregone because we don't have land inventory that fits what they need, even though it might be an industry that we're targeting. So I think that there is the concrete data available that this was based off of, and it's just paving that path forward for the community to be strategic and have say in what's developed here versus us not making that decision intentionally about the industries we want here and having other people come do that for us. So I will leave it at that, and I can come back next month, but happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you.
I appreciate you saying that, and I don't, it's not so much a question, more of a statement, is that the job you do is to help us attract business and make sure we have it here, right? You're out there trying to, we don't tell a business they have to build in Prineville.
No.
And that is a common misconception, which goes right back. I'm keeping it attached to this and what you said. I get a lot of comments as mayors. Why don't you do this in Prineville? Why don't we build this here? Why don't we build a new sawmill? We don't do that. We make sure the land's available for that if it's needed. And that's, you know, and we try to attract business and infrastructure, but we don't just go out and say, Fred Meyer, you're going to come build in Prineville. They
Yeah.
have to need it. There has to be a want and need. They do their own economic analysis. And I just wanted to say that because the job you do is to go out and try to attract those targeted businesses. If they
And-
don't want to build here or don't need to, we can't force them. So, but.
And we
it's-
don't honestly have to do that much attraction, frankly. People want to be in Central Oregon. It's the fastest growing region in the state. People want to live here, move here, work here, all of that. I will say majority of our projects are existing local businesses that are expanding. And in a lot of cases, we haven't seen it yet here, but neighboring cities, there are businesses that are doing expansions elsewhere because they don't have land to continue growing here. And once they move, that potentially risks their whole organization moving there. And that is something that we definitely want to avoid because some of the largest employers in the region, that has become an issue.
That's why this whole thing is important. And I'm glad that we're keeping it open for a month to let people know what it is that we're doing. Okay. All right. And I appreciate the job you do and giving us that explanation for this too.
Yeah, I appreciate your guys' work as well. Thanks for letting me provide comment, and
Thank you.
we'll see you in May.
All right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the council in the open portion of the hearing? I appreciate everybody that has spoken. And is there anybody on the Zoom calls that would like to? All right. Do we close the public hearing?
No.
You would want to state that the public hearing will remain open and reconvene on May 26th, 2026, but written comments can still be submitted during that time.
I really want to say what Jared said, but the public comment will remain open officially. Just like we did last year, similar thing. We left it open to get more comment period and get time. Now, those of you that were in the audience that spoke to us, share to your heart's content to get people to interact. And I genuinely, for the growth of Prineville in the future, want people to understand what it is we're doing. So thank you. So, all right, we can move on to the next.
Yeah, so it will be, the public hearing is continued and closed for tonight. So you can go ahead and put your gavel down.
All right. Official. Okay, now I gotta figure out where we're at. All right, staff reports and requests. City manager's report, Mr. Forster.
Thank you, Mayor. I was out of the office last week, so I've asked Casey, Assistant City Manager, to give a city manager report.
Good evening, council. For the record, Casey Kaiser, Assistant City Manager and Public Works Director. So on the public safety dispatch side, dispatch will be trying out a new resiliency training program tonight to see if it is effective for the department. And please don't ask me any questions about what that is. That's really all I know about that. We have 2 officer candidates that are still in the background phase. And Marlene, as you all probably know, is formerly a dispatcher. Up there, she graduated from the academy last Friday, and she starts her field training tomorrow. As an officer, she starts her field training tomorrow, and she will keep her dispatcher certification to assist dispatch as needed. And again, most of you probably all know Sergeant Takagi, who has been on deployment for quite some time now. He is back in Prineville from active duty. He's still going through his decompression phase, but we're anticipating his return date of July 1 back to work with the PD. So that's pretty exciting. On the public works side, our big capital improvement projects, we've got our South Main paving project going right now, and then also our water line projects over in the Fairmont area around 8th Street and 9th Street. So there will be some traffic disruptions for both of those projects, but primarily the South Main project. We have a completion date for that South Main project of June 19th, though, so all of that should be wrapped up in time for the busyness of the busy traffic of Roundup Week. And then our public works guys got the spurs successfully moved from the Y down to the high school. And I understand that our esteemed council member Marv may have provided some oversight to that process, or at least some moral support and encouragement. At the fairgrounds, okay. And is that where they'll do the base modifications?
We did
Oh, excellent.
change in base. It looked perfect sitting there, just in the wrong location.
Wonderful, wonderful. I somewhat regretfully report that our assistant city engineer, Mike Kasperger, this is his last week with the city. He is retiring this week on Thursday. We'll be having a retirement luncheon down here for Mike, so feel free to come by between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Thursday and wish Mike Kasperger well in his retirement. He seems pretty excited about it, and I'm not sure if he's more excited about being free of us from now on or the freedom of retirement. So but he seems pretty happy about that. On the railroad side, we have two positions currently posted. One is for a warehouse worker and the other is for lead in the warehouse. Out at Meadow Lakes, Zach is busy with some fundraising tournaments taking place. And then revenues have been good for April, despite the cooler weather. On the planning side, Josh is reporting that two of the apartment buildings in the towards the back of the mill apartments down there off of Combs Flat are on track to be completed in May as long as nothing unforeseen happens. On the IT side, they got the new time clocks installed out at Meadow Lakes, and they've been working on upgrades. Now that the spring's here, they're working on some of their tower upgrades, and a lot of those towers are out in higher areas that have been wet, or we haven't had a lot of snow to contend with this year, but they're usually a little harder to get to in the winter. So they're working on upgrades and installations on those towers. On the finance side, Lori and her team are very busy with finance stuff, as Lori reports. So really high level finance stuff. And you will be receiving your quarterly financial report in May. On the public relations side, Sean Ray was recently in DC and was able to meet with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Director and have some good discussion about our habitat conservation plan there. She is reporting that we are known as the Gold Star Basin in DC because all of the modernization projects and then also all the collaboration here between agencies and groups like the city and the irrigation districts and everything. So that was pretty neat news to hear that even as far back as DC, that word is getting around as to the success that we've had working collaboratively here to get some of those large projects done. And in some of those places, they're kind of looking at us as models and trying to pattern some of their efforts after ours. And then Sean Ray reports that she will also begin her wildfire safety messaging in May. And then on the front of strategy and economic development, Caroline is working with Matt to try and secure some additional Christie grant funding. And if they're successful in securing that funding, that money will be utilized for bridge and rail work that will improve safety. Happy to answer any questions.
I don't know. What are we going to do with Mike's red pickup?
We're gonna park it in his yard.
We're going to take up a collection and purchase it at auction and give it to Mike. Thank you, council.
That down of the first thing that popped in my mind. Was that red pickup.
It's a good one.
Because he won't get rid of it. So. All right. One other thing real quick. Oh, you're done. You're good. So
We're done.
you're done. I was thinking that you're still, we're going.
Nope, we're good.
Lieutenant, it says in here, Lieutenant Takagi, Sergeant. Okay. All right. Well, that thing, you know, if he was here, I would thank him for his service that he just went and did. I'm glad that he's taking time to decompress because, as someone who's been in those shoes, I did not, and it directly affected me tremendously. So I'm glad. I would hope that he has plenty of time to get that off of his, relax a little bit, spend time with family and friends before he comes back. So, very much thank him for that. So, all right. So, item number 8, Moderate Income Revolving Loan Fund, or MERL. Josh Smith. First time I heard MERL, I thought we were talking about somebody. So until we,
Yeah, I think most council members were at the first presentation of this one, kind of explaining the program. I'm going to kind of go through a briefer version of it in the packet. I think you had kind of a draft ordinance of how we would build that program and some policies associated with it. So I'll just go through it. What this program is what it says, Moderate Income Revolving Loan Program, MERL. It focuses basically on providing, in a way, a loan to help with the gap funding for specific types of housing, not specific income levels of housing. So 120% of AMI or below. So 120% of AMI is roughly, I think, if I remember right, 76,000 for an individual, something like that. And then it kind of goes up 2, 3, 4 people, kind of multiplies up. And that's their ceiling. You can pick anything below that. It's intended to be kind of this but-for funding. So if, but for this, your development doesn't work, is typically probably going to be used for infrastructure. And then the cities, and this is a little different from when we did the presentation last time because it kind of changed. What we were told is a little bit different now. So if the project is in the city has to be the sponsor. The county does not necessarily have to approve it. They do have to sign an IGA with the state. And so there is an intergovernmental agreement, which we just assumed they could not sign or something like that. But apparently that is a statute thing that is almost required of them as soon as the program is stood up, is how we're looking at this. And that's how the state is explaining it to us now. So what it does is it's kind of like tax increment financing. The cities must sponsor the program, and then the funding, say $4 million goes to a subdivision. And they build the subdivision out, and then the property taxes on those individual lots over time, a minimum of 10 years or until the loan program is paid, goes directed back to the revolving loan fund so they can be reused over and over again. It's very similar to kind of an urban renewal type district is kind of what it functions as, just a little more complicated in how it gets paid back and all the different agreements you have to have. So key partners, Oregon Housing Community Services, they are the financing agency at the state. Sponsoring jurisdiction, of course, is where it is established. So in this case, it would be the city. County tax assessor, this is that IGA between the county and OHCA. So the tax assessor has to kind of create this, whatever they need to do, so that those taxes get funneled back. And that's the IGA with the county that the state actually works on. We just have to have had a conversation with them so they don't get blindsided. We have done that. Applicant, of course, is a developer, any housing project determined by the local representatives, yourselves. And then the fee payer is, of course, whoever owns the property. It might be the developer owns portion of it as he sells the lots. He's still responsible for that portion that he owns, or she. And once the project is finished, that's when this kind of rolls through and helps pay it back. The city, Lori, our finance, there will be some responsibility there to funnel the money. We get it as a loan and we hand it out as a grant to the developer. And then we have to ensure it gets paid back. like I said, affordability. So the loan program granted to the developer essentially passes through from the buyer or the renter. It's passed on. So it's not intended to give the developer $4 million and let him pocket it. It's intended to move on. So he has to actually cap either the rental price or the purchase price of those homes at a certain rate so that it meets the 120% or lower of AMI. That's kind of the trade-off. So we actually didn't expect to see anybody even try to do this program, but it's starting to pick up some steam. And it doesn't hurt to have it available for your community in case someone wants to use it. Affordability period, like I said, is for 10 years or the duration of loan program. And I want to make this as pretty specific. I would probably want to put it somewhere in our policies that because this is what the state told us, but I don't see it in their documentation. Say someone purchases one of these homes and they meet the 120%, they meet the criteria, and then their life changes and they're now above it. They don't have to leave. They don't have to stop renting the place they're at. They don't have to sell the home that they're in. So that's an important part of this. There's been a lot of conversation about affordable housing and people purposely stay under the income so they can get their subsidies and things like that. This program does not do that. The types of projects that are available are pretty much any housing project you can think of. Now, you as a representative body can choose. In this ordinance right now, it's 120 or below, it's any housing type, and it's for the entire community. But you can actually say, you know what, we're not going to mess with ADUs, we're not going to try even set up the program for these types of uses. We're just going to do X, Y, Z. Right now, this ordinance is set up to cover any project that might come our way. So, like I just said, basically we kept the ordinance as broad as possible, 120, all housing, all city. I think it's probably wise to exclude industrial or ground floor commercial uses so we don't run into that stipulation where, I don't know, we end up putting something in the wrong spot. I think that would be a wise exclusion for the location. I do want to add, like I said, that income level does not affect eligibility. I want to add that somewhere in this project so we don't lose track of that. And then if you look at the policies B and D, I talked to Coos Bay, their city manager. They're trying to put together kind of an application process that are hoping that everybody in Oregon can use. These two policies, I think we might tweak or work on because I don't think the individual owners or renters are going to report back to OHCA individually. I don't think that's a functional way to do it. We might be able to tweak the language there. And then there's the inspection of the properties, which doesn't necessarily mean I'm out there knocking on their doors and seeing let me see your receipts kind of thing. We need to tweak that language. Our intention is to essentially pass an ordinance establishing the program, have an application process that basically the developer has to come in and show that they meet the criteria for it in their pro forma and how much money they need the loan for, and they put kind of this package together. And that goes to OHCA to be approved, and there's a master agreement associated with this. Our intention is to use neighbor impact as the mediator to vet who can purchase the homes or rent the apartments. We've already had communications with them that they can take on that portion of the program. Deed restrictions would ensure adherence to the program. So if they say the title companies will see a deed restriction if somebody tries to sell the lot after they've purchased it, to make sure that they sell it to another person that's eligible and it doesn't just get away from us. That's part of the restrictions. And then I'd like to keep the land use approval process kind of separate. So when a subdivision or apartment complex comes in, we're kind of vetting that normally like we always would. And then their loan program is simply that. They're getting a loan from the state to make it happen. It'd almost be very similar to how we did these apartments. The state just gave us the money instead. So we just built the infrastructure. But this is a similar sense of what we just did with the Ochoco Mill apartments and the Madras Highway apartments, the ones on Laughlin, Rooted Homes. State gave us money to expand our infrastructure, which triggered those guys to start their build. Virtually the same thing. It's just there's a lot more process to it. So the way this looks, what we would be looking at doing this ordinance here, as it stands, we probably make some tweaks, but this would go to a public hearing. I don't know if we do that on the 12th, maybe. And then we would potentially stand up the program as is according to how you guys want to set it up. Jared has something to say.
Waiting for you to be.
Go ahead.
So, as Josh presented, the Moderate Income Revolving Loan Program, or grant program, is a state program. It was created by the state through two different Senate bills in 2024 and 2025, and it is monitored by OGA. That program is OHCS. I said the wrong acronym. I apologize. So what we've tried to do is take those ordinances and policies and procedures from the state and put them in your material tonight. And what we're asking to have happen is to have a public hearing in 2 weeks. That's what you would ask for today, is if you're wishing to move down this path, to have a public hearing to see if people want to make any sort of comments based upon the presentations that have been made. My recommendation is, of course, to have the program, if this council wants to participate in this program, to be its broadest amount possible, right? Whole city, what qualifies. If you qualify for those left and right limits and you meet our planning direction when they go through the planning department, then you have access to the loan program, just as the state program was developed. The sponsoring jurisdiction, you have to remember, the reason why those are cities, particularly, are municipalities or home ruled units. And typically where most of your housing is in this state are in municipalities, right? And so that IGA with the county, they still have to agree to that IGA as the county, but counties, as our former county commissioner will be able to tell you, are a little different because they're subdivisions of the actual state, not home ruled jurisdictions. And so that's where that IGA compact comes into place, right? It's a state program initiated by Governor Kotek to increase housing in this state, which was one of her primary agenda or initiatives that she instituted. And so if Prineville wishes to participate in this loan program, you all get to make that decision. But the thought process was to provide you that state provided documentation and allow the citizens to come in and make a comment in a couple of weeks. It will not be on the same date as our EOA one. So we'll have a full, we're kind of purposely trying to focus our public hearings on one issue. But so that's the process that we're advising to do tonight.
Does it have any questions on kind of what it's said, how it looks right now?
I have just a couple things, not on how it looks. I have, I'd want to see the public hearing that come back. And this now includes getting that out there and let people know. 2, my understanding of all this is it will help people get into a house a little cheaper than the regular market value.
Correct.
So that will help. As someone who follows what's being said in the community, there's a lot of talk about affordable housing. This could help someone potentially take quite a bit of money off that house to get them into it, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's where I was going with that. I think, to me, that would probably make some people happy. That they would have an opportunity to get into a house a lot or a little bit cheaper than the regular market rate. So, and I would like to see that.
To kind of spin off what the mayor said, I understand that it might not be appropriate right now at this point after hearing what Mr. Reed said, but I would like to see this more geared towards single family homes and less geared towards apartment complexes. Home ownership is huge. So, and we've done pretty well on the apartment side recently. So I think single family homes is my goal in this, but after public hearing would be the appropriate time to make that decision.
Correct. And yeah, I will say that it's harder to manage rentals than the the single family home, you know, does seem to be a little more straightforward in the payback and the monitoring than the rental housing.
Anyone?
Josh,
Yep.
I struggle with terminologies.
Sure.
Middle housing, does that mean rental?
Where do you see middle housing? Middle housing,
It's with number 2 on.
middle housing is essentially duplex, triplex, fourplex. That type of housing. Number 2 on the ordinance.
Page 40. Agenda items today, draft. Third page, the draft at the top says.
Oh, single family middle housing as defined in, yeah.
Yeah, too. And again, that,
Yeah.
like I stated earlier, we're doing the broadest ordinance for the state, and that's why we present the most broadest.
Yeah.
Allow people to comment, allow you all to make adjustments if needed.
Yes. Middle housing is a term the state kind of recoined and created in, and really it's a duplex, triplex, fourplex type scenario, but then they added some other stuff that then allows you to subdivide those into lots, which basically makes them single family. So that's middle housing land division. There's a whole bunch of it's really difficult to track. So when they say stuff like that, again, you don't know what it means, right? You have to go back, read the ORS. What they're getting at rental housing, but then there's another, the middle housing land division allows it to be created single family, but still be called middle housing. It's a little weird. I think that's what they're getting at. There's also the potential of condos, which is what you're seeing like on Laughlin, Rooted Homes. Something we've kind of used, we treat them like multifamily, but they're individually sold. So that would be something, if you did want to restrict to single family, you might still consider condos as that, because it is a purchased unit.
And of course, this program would be available to any developer that meets the requirements. Or
Correct.
eligibility.
Yeah, this would be citywide. It may never be used. It might sit there and not be used, but it gives another option for those that are interested. It would take a special type of developer to actually want to cap themselves at real market, you know, because they will not be able to sell these homes at real market. But it's another tool that we can utilize.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Move on. Move on to council reports. Are there?
Actually, before we move on, I'm sorry, I apologize. We need a motion to call for a public hearing. That was what we were asking from y'all tonight. Sorry, getting a little late.
I'll move to call for a public hearing regarding the moderate income revolving loan fund.
For May 12th.
For May 12th, 2026.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Jared.
Yeah, thank you.
I was kind of thinking it was implied because we.
Yeah, I understand. We'll get that out soon, so we sure it gets published.
Thank you. Are there any council reports?
Very brief one. Casey mentioned the Spurs, and they have been moved late, he said, and very well done. There still has no decision made on where they're going to go. That's not up to us, I don't feel. I suggested to Phil Burgess, who spearheaded this thing, that he talked to Ellen Barstow, and of course, Pauline Shelf was long gone, and son John is not going to get involved in this process. So not sure exactly how that's going to be decided. Up on the roundabout, nice location, but everybody's got an opinion about that. In the plaza right here, good location. Everybody has an opinion about that. So I have my point of view. Others have their point of view, and I wouldn't try to influence that. If that does come down to us, maybe if Burgess is going to try to defer that to us, which I have a feeling that he might. So anyway, they're in great shape. No scratch on them. Rich did a great job with it.
Well, I think the problem lies, Councilor Sumner, is if it goes on city property, he can't just make that decision. Somebody from the city, either the legislative body or its administrative staff, will have to agree to that.
Well, and that's gonna be a city county thing too, because of Plaza. And it's kind of a mixed ownership, as I understand, so.
Correct.
Yep. So, more fun for Mr. Burgess.
I have a report. Marv, did you want to say anything about the League of Oregon Cities? All right. Okay. Well, I attended the League of Oregon Cities last Thursday and Friday, and I get a lot out of attending those. First thing I want to give you each the date, October 14th to 17th, 2026. Write it down, because you're going to be attending the League of Oregon Cities Conference in Salem. And I'm looking forward to having a great turnout from Prineville, because I think these events are really important for all of the council. I get a lot out of going to them. I mean, for example, I just went to a counselor's workshop, and then there was a session on fire mitigation. There was a session on grants, LCDC grants, planning and housing codes, heavy industry siting and development, technical assistant grants. And I look for grants because I want to find out what kinds of opportunities we have to bring revenue back into our community. And there's funding, for example, for infrastructure expansion. There was a great presentation by Business Oregon on forgivable loans up to $100,000 for studying of development of something within the city. Oregon Trust put on a presentation for solar panels and other types of energy programs. There was a program on urban form. And urban form, I thought, was quite fascinating, because one of the counties had developed this. They took every lot in the entire county and they overlaid their plan using AI, so that any lot that you went to, everything about the lot, any restrictions on the property, access to public water, distance from fire, whatever it happens to be, it was all they had to do was pop up that lot on the screen, and all the detail was readily available. And, to update it using AI was pretty simple, because you just put on a new spreadsheet and overlay that on top of the map, and you've got the updates for each and every lot throughout the entire county. So it's something that really sparked my attention to AI and the kinds of things that would be beneficial to Prineville, to our community. I met with a gentleman by the name of Brian Garcia, who is with TIA, and they develop workforce AI technology skills. And I had a visit with our city manager, because I think that this is something for staff development that I think we really need to focus on, so that our staff's not left behind, and consequently our city left behind, because so much AI development is taking place. Initiating some sort of governance and policies to start off with, so it doesn't get off track and cause all sorts of problems like some of them do when they're not properly laid out. But all of this came out of the League of Oregon Cities, the grants, the possibilities, and what I found probably even more interesting is visiting with the vendors, because they have a lot to offer communities. Ideas, places to go, things to look at. And ways to improve what's going on in each and every community across the state. So I think it's very helpful. And I would like to see the whole council attend. I think it would be very beneficial for us. But there was one other aspect that came up when I got to the to the session, and got this plaque. Came from the League of Oregon Cities, and I will read it from Patty Mulvihill, who is the executive director of the league. Dear City Council, City of Prineville, in 2025, the League of Oregon Cities celebrated 100 years of service to cities. Your city was one of 25 founding members of the League of Oregon Cities. And in recognition of your historic contributions to LOC, the state of Oregon, and to your own community, the LOC's Board of Directors adopted a resolution honoring your community. Thank you for your service to all your residents and businesses and to the league. Now, Steve Forrester and I have both served on the executive committee for the League of Oregon Cities. Those kinds of things are opportunities that we can serve, and I hope other folks do also. But we have a resolution that I hope each of you will take the time to read. And I'll read the beginning of this. A resolution of the League of Oregon Cities recognizing and commemorating the partnership between the cities of Prineville and LOC as the LOC commemorates 100 years of service and Prineville's role in creation and continued support of LOC. And there are just a myriad of details that this goes into in this resolution. So it is set up to be hung for the community to read. I would like each of you to take a look at it when you have an opportunity. I can pass it around, but this isn't the best time to take a look at this. So please keep it in mind, October of this coming fall. I hope everyone is in Salem for the event because it's going to be memorable, especially for Prineville. So that's what I have to offer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can pass it on down if you will.
Did you have another reports?
That's my report.
All right. Thank you, sir.
I think that's enough.
I just want to make sure that you. Right, so we'll move on to ordinances. Ordinance number 1307, granting an electric utility franchise and general utility easement. Second presentation, Steve Forrester and Jared Reed.
Jared Reed, City Attorney for the record. This is the second presentation. There's been no changes from what you saw 2 weeks ago. This is also based upon the workshop that we did 4 weeks ago, or maybe 5. So this would just be for a second presentation. After it passed, it would be sent to Pacific Power to accept and then go into effect for the next 5 years.
Any questions from anybody?
Thanks. No questions for me, but open to a motion to approve resolution 1307
Ordinance
ordinance 1307
or a second presentation.
for a second
I'll
presentation.
move to approve ordinance number 1307, granting a electric utility franchise and general utility easement. Second presentation.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Move on to resolution 1643, approving a rate increase for solid waste franchise services. That's all it says on that. Is there anybody presenting or do we?
I think Erica is here. If you have any questions for Erica, and
I'll just talk to the resolution.
Yeah, go
Yeah, I'll talk to the resolution, and I know that Erica is here from Republic if the council had any questions for her. This was based on the public hearing that we had at the last council meeting, in which there was some discussion and some testimony taken. The council at that point indicated a 3% raise, and so that's what is within the resolution, not the 3.5. And then the schedule is attached there too. I was also asked a question to research by Council Howard, and that memorandum is in, or answer is within the packet. It's titled a memo, but it's not much of a memo. It just answers that question in regards to past requests that Republic has made in regards to increases.
Are we discussing right now?
That's all I have to present. Sorry.
I wasn't here for the last meeting, so I don't know all the discussion that was had. I do have a question for you though, if you'd like to come up, please. And it's not so much about the rate increase. I appreciate, that it's not a 15 or 10% rate increase request. My question is, in the past, and I wasn't here the last meeting, or I would ask that. I've asked in the past, and I've a few times about a local contact, and I know we have someone there. Is there any movement on having a local phone number that people could call if there's an issue? So,
Yes, I mean, we are, as a company, continuing to discuss options for local contact or an option for customers to call us directly at the local office. So that is very much still a discussion. I don't have really any further information to provide at this time, but I do want to assure council that is still something that we take very seriously because we get a lot of feedback from the community that's something that they really want. So we're continuing to have those discussions.
thank you.
Any other questions?
How many hours a week do you have somebody in the office up there?
We have a representative for our office available from 8 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, excuse me.
And the reason I ask about someone that we could call is because if you have someone on a big project somewhere and they need service, I ask that because in the past I've been in situations, I have family members too that have worked on big projects, and they would just call and say, hey, we filled up 5 of these 30-yard dumpsters earlier than we expected when they were scheduled to get picked up. Can we have someone come pick them up and so we can reuse them? And that's why I ask, because we do have some big customers. We got a new owner of a mill that hopefully, I just want to be able to make sure we're serving them and all the people. But that's why I asked that, because that was a huge benefit in the past. And that's the only thing I get a lot of questions about that. But I do appreciate too that there's someone there on site that you can go in and ask and talk to.
And a lot of times, contractors do have our dispatcher's contact information, and they do reach out directly to her if they need service, or a supervisor on site as well. So that's always an option. And on our Central Oregon Republic Services website, there is a local email address that they can get in contact with us as well. And then we can set up that relationship so they can call us directly.
So you are giving a couple phone numbers out to people, big contractors and.
Yeah, they do. They can email and they can contact our dispatcher.
Okay. That's kind of what I was looking for. I want to make sure we take care of everybody, but the big customers, when they need an emergency or a quick service, I know that in the past that a lot of it was COVID too, but I appreciate that.
Definitely.
All right, that's the only questions I have.
I don't have any questions, but I can share some sentiments and comments that I made at the last meeting when you were here. I will, my opinion hasn't changed. I don't think it's appropriate at this time to issue another rate increase. I've heard the people of Prineville, their garbage bills went up 25% over the last 3-year period. That is a substantial number. I understand that 3% doesn't sound like much to us up here. whatever. But when you look at the broad spectrum of things and the overall inflation and cost of living that people are going through and incurring right now, it's just stacking up. It's stacking up. And a trash collection service is probably one of the first ones on the chopping block to cut and remove. So by doing these consistent rate increases, is Republic decreasing their account numbers? Are people leaving their services in droves? Is this going to have an adverse effect? Have we crossed the threshold to no longer having a very successful business model? I don't know. In these numbers, these are all expense projections. There is never a mention of projected growth. We've built hundreds of homes in this city in the last 3 years. Those are all potential clientele and accounts for public services. There's new commercial businesses. Again, potential accounts for Republic. But the numbers aren't here, and I would expect them to grow along with the city. So I can't support it at this time. I feel like 25% over the last 3 years is enough. So that's where I stand.
I'm glad you said that. Glad you appreciate that. Not glad more. I appreciate it. I wasn't here at the last meeting, and I don't know what all the comment was, and I haven't had a chance to really go through that. I'm open to a motion to approve the rate increase, but I'm also I feel like I would have to abstain from a vote because I still need more information. So that I don't know how to move forward with that.
That being said, I move to approve resolution number 1643, resolution approving rate increase for solid waste franchise services.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Should we do a roll call vote? Because I'm gonna abstain. All right, I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Counselor Eflin?
Aye.
Counselor Bremer?
Aye.
Sorry, I wanted to call you Counselor Jerry, but Counselor Howard?
Nay.
Counselor Smith?
Aye.
Counselor Sumner? And I want to abstain because I don't feel I can make a decision today, but it doesn't matter.
I don't know if you're able to abstain based on enough information. You instead would need to vote nay if you're good conscience not able to vote.
Okay, vote nay. But it still passes 4-2. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we are down to visitors' appearances and requests. Would anybody like to speak to the council that's left in the audience?
I'd like to make one last comment before, and this is about LOC. That charter, that information that I sent around, we were one of 25 cities in the entire state that were part of that original charter. And we are the only city on the east side of the Cascades to participate. We need to continue to represent this side of the mountains to the rest of the folks in the state and be a part of that organization. So please get engaged. Thank you.
I believe they represent 241 cities and towns.
Thank you. Is there anybody on the Zoom call that would like to speak to us? If there's none, nobody in the audience wants to. Jason, I'm giving you one last chance. All right. I'm open to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.